Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're becoming linguistic detectives to uncover the hidden rules and systematic patterns completely disguised right within our everyday informal speech. Seriously, have you ever listened to someone talk and realized you were paying way more attention to exactly how they were speaking rather than what they were actually saying? Well, today, we are going to explore the absolutely fascinating world of variationist sociolinguistics, drawing directly from Sally A. Tagliamonte's comprehensive guide on the subject. We're going to decode the secret messages hidden in our daily conversations. Let's start our investigation right at the scene of the crime. Just picture a 7-year-old boy in a classroom, and he answers a teacher's question by exclaiming, "I don't know nothing about that." Now, really listen to the structure of that sentence. It's something we hear all the time in casual environments, right? But it instantly triggers reaction in our brains. So let's dive into this. When you hear a double negative like that, is it just sloppy slang, a careless mistake, or maybe a clue to something much deeper? Where on the planet was it spoken? What is the background of the speaker? See, traditional grammar might just slap a big red X on it and call it a performance error. But sociolinguistics, it views this entirely differently. To a sociolinguist, this isn't a mistake at all. It's a crucial data point. And right here is where our forensic approach completely flips. Traditional linguistics asks, how do you say X? By abstracting away from social factors to find these rigid universal rules. Sociolinguistics, however, doesn't ask you how to say something. The variationist just sits back, lets you talk, and carefully observes how you naturally express things in a social context. They are literally looking at where the rules of grammar make contact with human society. Now, to solve the puzzle of how we speak, we have to understand 3 foundational clues. The entire methodology we're exploring today depends heavily on these 3 undeniable facts about human language, facts that traditional linguistics often pushes aside. We have orderly heterogeneity, language change, and social identity. Let's break these down real quick. First up is orderly heterogeneity. Now, I know that sounds like a mouthful, but it's actually a very simple, beautiful concept. It just means language varies, and that variation is totally normal. Having multiple ways to say the exact same thing isn't chaotic, and it doesn't mean the language is broken. In fact, foundational researchers tell us that the absence of this variation would actually be dysfunctional. When a speaker switches between different sounds or grammatical structures, they're operating within a highly structured, systematic framework. It's patterned order, not random chaos. Second, language is always changing. It's in a state of perpetual flux. And this brilliantly explains why phrases that were perfectly normal hundreds of years ago are now considered incorrect, and vice versa. For example, hundreds of years ago, a standard English speaker would say, "I know not." Today, that's completely shifted to "I do not know." Even the word ain't, which gets heavily stigmatized today, used to be the perfectly normal standard way of expressing negation in English. Language is totally a moving target. Our third clue is social identity, meaning language constantly transmits our social coordinates. Listen to this snippet from the York English corpus. It's just stuff that really annoys me, and I just stare at him and just go huh. Pay close attention to the rhythm there, the use of just like and go like. Try to build a mental image of the person who's speaking. You can practically feel the attitude and the specific generational markers baked right into the vocabulary, can't you? Now, contrast that vibe entirely with this speaker from the exact same corpus, using phrases like "where I dare say" and "goodness knows what." Once again, let your brain build a profile of this speaker based solely on those words. The referential meaning here, just describing a location, is incredibly simple, but the social meaning layered on top of it, it's incredibly rich. So, what's the fascinating twist here? I bet you intuitively knew the first speaker was an 18-year-old female and the second was a 79-year-old female, right? Without seeing them, without knowing a single thing about them, their language choices instantly betrayed their age and social demographic. It absolutely proves that every single time we open our mouths, we are transmitting our social history, our group loyalties, and our personal identity. To gather the absolute purest clues, researchers have to tap into what sociolinguists call the vernacular. This is our completely unmonitored everyday informal speech. It's the language you use when you're highly emotional, when you're talking to a close friend, or when you're just really not thinking about how you sound. This is crucial because the vernacular is actually the most systematic form of speech, completely free from hypercorrection. It gives us the baseline from which all other performance styles are calibrated. And this brings us right to the fieldwork methodology outlined in Sally A. Tagliamonte's foundational text. Her book details exactly how researchers can't just sit in a sterile lab to find the vernacular.
No way. They have to literally immerse themselves into a speech community. They have to become part observer and part participant, recording language use in its raw, natural, sociocultural setting. That's the only way to overcome the normative pressures that make people hide their true conversational habits.
Now, notice how one underlying idea can totally fracture into completely different forms. We can range from the highly vernacular "I ain't gotta tell you nothing" to something much closer to the standard "I don't have to tell you anything." Each variation carries a very distinct social weight and triggers completely different social judgments from whoever is listening. What we just looked at is a prime example of form/function asymmetry. While a strict traditionalist might argue that different forms absolutely must have different meanings, variation analysis recognizes that we subconsciously swap out different words, sounds, or grammatical structures to achieve the exact same function. The differences between these competing forms are basically neutralized in the flow of conversation. So our job as linguistic detectives is to pinpoint exactly where and why this overlap exists. So the crucial point here is that by zooming in on this tiny linguistic variables, we uncover the raw material for our analysis. And this variation happens at literally every level of grammar. Take phonology, where someone might say left school instead of left school. Or in morphology, dropping the "ly" to say they take it so serious. Or even with intensifiers, choosing between a right dirty look and a really dirty look. Every single discrete choice is a variable we can track.
But hey, to actually prove our case scientifically, we have to rely on the rigorous principle of accountability. This is the absolute golden rule of this methodology. It means you can't just cherry pick the weird, funny, or non-standard slang words you happen to notice. You are forced to look at the whole picture. You have to meticulously count every single time a speaker could have used a variable but didn't. You're analyzing both the realized and the unrealized elements in the entire system.
And honestly, this is where the magic of the quantitative method truly shines. By treating these language choices, like using ain't versus haven't versus don't, as discrete, trackable alternatives, we can actually build a mathematical model of a speaker's underlying grammar. We are taking the messy, invisible social choices people make every second they speak and turning them into measurable statistics to reveal the hidden architecture of their language. How cool is that? Now, carrying out this investigation requires a sequence of what pioneer William Lebeau called exploratory maneuvers. First, you round up the total population of utterances. Second, you filter out all the noise to find reliably identified variants. And finally, you scour your data to identify the hidden constraints. It is absolutely grueling work of sifting through massive amounts of data until you have that brilliant eureka moment where the hidden patterns finally emerge.
Ultimately, this forensic method of analyzing variation gives us unparalleled tools. It takes us way beyond just anecdotal observation and provides a replicable, accountable system. It forces us to look at real language as it's actually lived and breathed out in the real world. In doing so, we're studying the continuous interplay between our grammatical systems and our social reality. We aren't just studying language anymore. We are mapping out what human beings are all about.
The way we speak is this ever-shifting tapestry, woven with our personal histories, our geographical roots, and our deeply held group loyalties. Every single dropped consonant and everyday slang term is a breadcrumb revealing exactly who we are. So I leave you with this to ponder as you step back out into the world. If the subtle linguistic variations you use every single day are a detailed map of your unique identity, what exactly does your language say about you?